Our crops were drying out. The drought was just that ruthless, and we weren't prepared. I wasn't ready for that destruction. I could only watch as my beaver suffered due to lack of food and water. As I walked down the main street on my way to check our gear production, I saw one beaver collapse and not get up. It's enough to say that I was heartbroken, and I had to change my ways of running my colony, but my beaver still believed that I could pull us out of that rock bottom, and I had to meet their expectations. Our outpost worked as much as it could. They were building and farming. I knew they were suffering too, they got hit also, and I could see it in their eyes. I couldn't have asked much more of them, as they were giving everything anyway, but I needed everyone so we could survive. Our home was filled with farms, small yet effective. They kept us alive for the time being. But that wasn't nearly enough. It was never enough, and we were growing at a steady pace. Our houses were full always, no matter how many we built. I was glad to see our young walk the streets, but I knew their stomachs must be growling. So the outpost had to farm too. The land there was supposed to bring new buildings for us to use, but 2 new farms were being built, which meant even more land for our crops. They worked hard and fast, but to me it seemed as it was never enough. I was starting to get angry. Nothing seemed to get done quick enough, and all the pressure I felt during those days made me crack. And I had caught myself being angry at my beavers. Why? What for? All of this was my fault. They followed me without any second thought. And again, at the end of the day, I alone had been the worst of us. My beavers were guilty only of having me as their leader. But I couldn't give up. Not when we were at the bottom. We had to swim up if we wanted to survive. While the river was full, we had to stock up, increase our food production however we knew. Bread, baking goods, different kinds of crops to plant, in the hope to always have food stocked up. Water was being pumped, our containers filled. We were on a good course. The new land finally gave food to us, and we went to work. More buildings, a mill and a grill, more storage for everything. We had to work fast, build many things and make sure to never suffer again. The huge hole nearby the outpost was a Mother Nature made container for us. It should have kept our crops green way longer. Yet nothing goes according to plan. From a small patch of barren land, we built, we invented, and we made something we never had. Every building we built was a monument for us. My anger went away, and then I only felt pride. That was the end of the period which would later be known as the Great Hunger. I had lost a lot of my beavers, and only a handful of us were left. As if all of that wasn't enough, Mother Nature threw another punch at us. Against that disaster, we couldn't have done much. A bad water tide, the dirty, toxic red water that the humans left us as a last gift to us, that we had been trying to avoid, finally forced itself into our hands. The upper dam was closed in an effort to stop the bad water from flowing into our lands too much. Even though I had to sacrifice some land around the outpost, it seemed like a worth sacrificed for the greater good. But bad water ruins everything. It made the land toxic, made us sick. and it ruined all the crops and trees that were unlucky enough to be planted near it. And the bad water was too much. The sheer amount of it overflowed and went straight for the outpost hole. I had opened the dam, ready to sacrifice a little of both instead of one hole. All we could do is hope that in due time the bad water will leave. I would have taken any drought instead of that monstrosity. As the bad water went past our village, I could see everything dying. Everything we worked hard for gone in just a blink of an eye. But fresh water followed it. Not a single moment too early. A lot of us got sick due to bad water exposure, and we had to invent and build our healer. The next drought brought new challenges. It was longer and hotter. We had water reserves, and the dam was holding more water at bay, but we didn't know if it would last us enough. For some time we worked normally, hoping that it would pass any moment. Yet most of our greens had turned yellow, dying. I had to release the water held up by the dam in hope that it would last enough. Yet, it didn't. Ruin was at our doorstep. Everything was dying. Death was over our little village, and everyone could feel it. And yet again, Mother Nature saved us at the last moment. Water as our savior came pouring in, bringing life back to our village. Since we worked tirelessly for who knows how long, I decided that we all deserved a little something to cheer us up even when times were bad. We built a huge resting place in the same hole that could have been our ruin, had it contained the bad water for a long time. Everyone had been enjoying themselves, and our spirits were high. A huge water pumping line had been built by the river. If the droughts were only going to be longer and harder with the addition of bad water tides, we needed huge reserves of fresh water, and we needed to focus on our research. Advanced buildings, grasping everything nature had to offer, was our next step. I wanted to harness the power of the bad water. The beavers working there have been getting sick, but thanks to our healer, they didn't have any lasting problems. For us, bad water was ominous. It never brought anything good. We had to either stop it completely or use it for our gain. Both options were easier said than done. After all the hardships we survived, all the death that stood over our heads, the lost beavers, lost family, all the pain that held our hand, we emerged stronger, bigger, and more confident. I would never forget our lost beavers due to the mistakes I made. I could have only promised to not repeat them. For our sake. For my sake.